Hello and welcome again to Casual Magic. Today I'm just going to tell you a quick D&D story and just how shocked and humbled I am. Because if you remember, back in something like the 80s, there's the whole satanic panic thing, and, D&D was that gateway thing, and even if you found old things at a garage sale, that those weren't cool things to have. But, yeah, I understand D&D wasn't my first role-playing game that I got into. I actually conned my grandparents into getting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles role-playing game to start because one of my friends had another Platinum Robotech role-playing game. And that was sort of the gateway. And little by little, as I got more and more books, then eventually I could kind of show, hey, role-playing game's fun and nothing's crazy's happened to me yet. And eventually kind of get into these. But time passed, and as fun as my middle school through college age was, didn't roleplay for a very, very long time. And then sometime about a year and a half ago, one of my coworkers' wives said that her son had gotten recently into playing D&D at a summer camp at Boy Scouts and had a lot of fun with it, but didn't really know how to play that much. They got some sort of starter set. They were kind of learning how to do character creation, but didn't really know how to run a game. And did I ever do anything like that? And it's like, I get it. I didn't grow up in the South, so Satanic Panic wasn't as crazy. Especially with D&D being originally a Wisconsin thing. Yeah, it was all over the Midwest, so yeah, no big deal. It was just, nerdy thing to do in the winter when it's freezing cold and you can't go outside every day because it's freezing. And I said, sure, the rules have changed, but, as far as the story goes, yeah, I can run it from point A to point B. That part's easy. And I'm sure as time has gone on, the rules have changed. So, I got my 5e set here and slowly, started reading things and catching up on rules, and THACO no longer exists, and that makes life a whole lot easier as far as the math is concerned. And I've gotten into it as a fun extra hobby, just basically teaching these kids who are primarily at that time 10. They were, I think, 11 and just starting to go on 12. I believe the first of them did have his 12th birthday. So it's been a fun learning experience, both for me kind of getting back into it, as well as teaching the kids, like, these are good choices that you need to make within a role-playing game, such as, don't think that you're always indestructible. Don't try and steal something in a crowd with other people looking at you. Don't always just take on a monster because you're just like, oh, that's a skeleton, and I've read the monster manual, and I've memorized its stat block. Not necessarily. Sometimes the DM changes things up on you, so watch out. And I've gone on, and, right now, Tomb of Annihilation, that's what we're going through, having a lot of fun, setting up a lot of traps. I've done things like Kickstarters where I've donated some money, so here you can see the Fantasy World Creator sets I had out the other day to block stuff off. And one thing that was kind of fun, let's say, last year they got me a fun t-shirt. And, nothing came of this year's Christmas, and I finished up the game yesterday, and the one of the kids was still there, and the mom said, like, oh, yeah, go get the bag. And so they got the bag, and they came back with it, and it was just like, here's the bag, and they said, oh, yeah, here's a belated Christmas present. And so I took it out, and there's a shirt in it, and I was like, oh, okay, they got me a cool new shirt this year, so here it is. You reach out to push off the ledge. You reach out to push the orc off the ledge. 1. But instead lightly caress his back. He is uncomfortable. And so naturally I started laughing because, I've DM'd enough games, and I do like those occasional old school games, which now doing 5e I do less of, but at least to start, I would do that, where a 1 was just terrible, which for any older players, you remember, if you rolled something like a 1, like your sword just like would ricochet off the armor with such a fierce vibration that you would drop your sword. Or if you were shooting your bow and arrow, that the string would break within the arrow and then basically just, or sorry, within the bow, and then just like ruin your bow then, at least until you had another action to rewind more string on it. So it was a good shirt, and I thought, that's it. And then all of a sudden, just like, oh, hey, by the way, here's this envelope in it. And it's like, oh, okay. This feels kind of squishy, and okay, that's kind of weird. And I pop it open here, and oh, there is a sizable stack of 20s in here. And I was like, oh my God, what's this for? And she said, hey, well, I mean, it's written on the other side. And I was like, what? And so there it is for your printer. I love that font there. It is printer, but yeah. Because at some point I had talked about, oh, there's this Kickstarter thing, and I've got, these weird little figures that I have that are coming in. And it's like a really, really cool design that you've got various figures that you can have their little front and back, and you can have them walk around little tiles like this, where they've got the little grids already written on them, and there's just so much cool stuff available now that, at least when I was a kid, it was 100% theater of mind. And I know some figures existed, but I didn't have money for that. I was glad I had my few kind of core books, and that's about it. So, yeah, just out of the blue, it was this. And they said, oh, yeah, well, because, at some point you were talking about, like a 3D printer, blah, blah, blah. And then had some separate conversations from behind the scene with someone who shall remain nameless, when they said, oh, what does he want for his birthday? And it's just like, well, he doesn't really, eat out as much. At least as far as local restaurants go, there's nothing like, oh, it's a special event, so he'll go out and eat $100 dinner, because who cares? And if he's going to eat something fancy anyway, he'll just wait until he's in Japan, or, during the summer or whenever, and then eat some totally awesome food like, kaiten sushi or something, and be completely happy with that. So, what else does he want? Just like, I don't know, probably the only thing he's recently talked about was that printer. And it's like, oh, yeah, he was talking about that, like, at that Christmas party, blah, blah, blah. How much is that thing worth? And, they looked up whatever it was, and it was, basically like $300 for the one that I saw online. And so, from the parents, basically that is from the parents of the 9 different kids there. That is their collection of $300 that they pulled together for me. And that is for a 3D printer, because in the end, when they said, what does he want? Oh, he kind of wants a 3D printer. Just like, oh, neat. Why? It's like, because he said he wanted to make more D&D stuff for the kids. Like, he could make them little figurines and stuff. And it's like, even as a present, he wants to do more D&D stuff for our kids. Pfft, yeah, absolutely. How much money do you need? And they just pulled this together. And it was just, late in this case, I guess, just because they were busy in January, maybe didn't get to see all the parents. But then just out of the blue, after the game was done last night and the majority of the parents picked up their kids, this was just brought to me. And I am just completely humbled by this. That in the end, just kind of me kind of getting back into this hobby over the past years and buying, I don't know how many books on sale, getting the Fantasy World Creator stuff, just like all this little thing here and there. And they're just sort of a pipe dream of a 3D printer, just to be like, yeah, it's kind of cool. I could print out a dragon, I could paint it, it'd be really fun. I never got to do that as a kid. I think it would be really fun to do, to print out miniatures and then even have like a little, paint day. Just say, okay, kids, today it's not going to be role playing, just for like a couple hours. Everyone gets paints, everyone gets the figurine of your character, and you get to paint them. And it's almost become like this sort of classroom hobby of mine once a month. And I guess to my surprise, the parents appreciated that and want me to get a 3D printer. So honestly, I'm sure at some point in the future I will link this video to them and say, oh yeah, by the way, I have a YouTube channel. I babble about mostly Magic and then some D&D stuff. But I just want to say thank you. I certainly did not expect this. It was just sort of a wishful thinking thing to say, just like, oh my God, they've got this new cool stuff now, that I never had as a kid. Like I never, thought as a kid I would have like one of those little pewter figurines or those like lead kind of super heavy metal figurines and, paint it and get into it, and now think like, oh yeah, if you have a 3D printer, you can print out a miniature and it will cost you something like 7 cents worth of plastic or some insanely cheap thing like that. So, man, just the future's awesome. I'll have to say that. And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even last night at the role-playing game, just as one last quick tangent, they dragged in the pizza delivery guy, because at some point I guess he said like, oh yeah, isn't this the house where there's like the kids who play D&D? And yeah, I've kind of heard about it, but I don't know much. And I guess my coworker's wife was just like, or coworker's now ex-wife, his wife at the beginning of the story, current day ex-wife, she like dragged him in and said like, oh hey, the Domino's guy's got a question about D&D. And he's like, oh yeah, so I don't know much about it, but I think it's like you roll something like a 1 and that's bad, and then you roll something like a 20 and that's good. It's like, yeah, if it's something like combat, it's like an automatic miss for 1, automatic hit, and double damage or double die amount for the natural 20. And yeah, and he's like, so what do you call the dice? It's like, it's just depending on the number of sides. So if it's something like a 6-sided die that you have in Monopoly or whatever, just for ease, just call that a D6. So for the 20-sided die that you're rolling for the majority of the game, I would call that a D20. So there's like D20, D12, D10, D8, D6, D4. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay, cool. I didn't know that. And he's like, okay, all right, well, thanks. That's all I needed. I'll go to my next delivery. And he went out the door, and it's crazy. Even little things like that this pizza delivery guy just like knew, this house. It's just like, oh yeah, the Domino's people know like once a month, that's the D&D house. And it's like, I'm somehow for me, last summer, just, year and a half ago, summer, saying, just like, oh, do you know how to, did you ever play D&D? Yeah. Do you know how to run a game? Just like, yeah, I guess the rules have changed in 20-ish years, but as far as storytelling, yeah, absolutely. That's no problem. Just like, could you run a game for a bunch of kids? Just, sure. And somehow it's turned into this. And not only that, but now they're, I guess, handsomely rewarding me. And now I'm going to have to double my efforts into learning more about 3D printing with the printer, and actually build toys for their children like I'm Santa Claus. Oh, it'll be fun. It's going to be so much fun. So I just wanted to tell you this quick D&D update in my life, because I did not expect this. I know there's a lot of DMs out there who, from time to time they have kind of annoying groups, or they are, old friends that they've played with for, 10 or 20 or, even more years, and they're just very kind of old and dead set and just cranky in their ways. But I just want to remind you that every once in a while there are situations like this where kids that otherwise don't necessarily have that outlet to show off their confidence, courage, even let's say like minimal acting ability. These might be a lot of the kids who are either the kind of brainy Hermione Granger types that are raising their hands to answer every single question in the room. And then other kids are completely jealous, and other kids are the silent ones in the back, basically an extra who has no lines, never raised their hand for anything, and never really get a chance to be in a spotlight. Yet somehow in this game that I've run, I've tried to keep it a mostly level playing field where everyone gets an opportunity at some point to play the hero, to have those wonderful situations of empowerment, to have those opportunities where someone is doing some sort of dialogue with them, and then what will happen in the adventure really depends on their responses, and then the story will hinge in a different direction depending on what they say, whether they talk their way out of a situation or whether they're able to suddenly trick someone into getting into a fight early before all of their allies show up. Those kind of things that I really try and, I guess, bring out some of their core personalities through their characteristics. Because I know, especially as younger kids, they don't necessarily have that sort of, I guess to have it with nice language, to say, screw it, I'm going to do this anyway. That kind of just brash attitude that, at least for some people, understand it's just a game, whatever, I'm going to have a good time, I'm going to do something crazy. Because in real life, I couldn't do this, but this is a game and I want to have some fun. So let's jump over that ledge. Let's steal that magic item. Let's just shoot an arrow at a dragon and see what happens. Those kind of things that I think through this, little by little, they are able to express themselves, and there's a lot of kind of joy and friendship. I see them in these situations where even after the fact, when things get done, they can say like, oh, do you remember that one time that, we were fighting against this guy and blah, blah, blah. It's not necessarily just like, hey, do you remember that story about, or do you remember this? Instead, it's a lot of we. It's just these very, very, personable type things, because it's almost like these are memories that we made together as, me kind of driving the story and them as the characters, kind of picking up the reins and saying, we want to do this. We're going to go here, we're going to fight this, and going along. And I've just absolutely had a blast seeing them go from, I would say, mostly timid little kids into little by little teenagers. And very, very soon, they are basically all going to be kind of that same age that I myself was when I first started playing role-playing games. And as far as sitting in a room where the kids are just every once in a while just completely breaking out and yelling at each other, that is really no different from when I was a young kid myself at the end of the table as the one who enjoyed memorizing a bunch of rules, doing a bunch of crazy voices, and running probably 99% of the games I ever played in. It's just that I'm a lot older now, but the audience in front of me of players, they somehow stayed the same age. So it's fun. It's so much fun. So I just wanted to tell you this story. Again, thank you very much to this group of parents, and I can only hope other DMs out there really get some sort of group like this where you do get a lot of positive feedback. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cash, but finding that players and or parents or other people related to it really do take your efforts with a bit of pride and really appreciate the work that you do and the hours that you put in. And me as a DM, to all of you other DMs out there, I want to say thank you very much for all of your work. Even though I haven't participated in most of your games, I understand a lot of your struggles because, again, that's what I've done. Even with the large gap in the middle, just that's what I've done for a decent portion of my life. So I'm just pleased to see some I don't know, positive feedback here that I'm just completely humbled by. So that's it. I just wanted to tell you that story. Sorry I went on for a bit, but I just needed to say all that because, again, I'm humbled. I don't need an outro. Everyone take care, and until next time, good luck.